Thanks, Alex and Matt, for the introduction. We're going to talk about cross-platform enterprise and enterprise CMS. Real quickly, a little bit about me. I'm Nate Bunton. I work for MetaPayment Systems. Our home office is up in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I work remotely. A few years ago, actually about 5 years ago, we had a small office here in Omaha. Things changed a little bit, and now I'm the lone developer. But up in Sioux Falls, we do have a development group. I think we've got about 35 developers. We got five teams, five or six developers, a couple QA on each team. Run Agile. What MetaPayment Systems does, we do a lot of things. We do ATMs. You might see our logo on some ATMs. We do a lot of prepaid. That's primarily where I focus, is in the prepaid space, in the business, the B2C websites, B2C apps, and customer service interface. A lot of web-based stuff. Build everything basically on a Microsoft tech stack. WCF, MVC, Angular. Pretty cool place to work. I've worked there 8 years this January. Tech Systems did place me at Meta 8 years ago, so that's just a little bit about me. So what we're going to talk about today is about CMS business needs and our development process. We're going to take a look at myprepaidbalance.com, and that's going to be our production website that we're using. I'd like to show you a lot about that, but there's only so much I can show you. Then we're going to dive into a sample project and kind of go through some of the mechanics of what's actually happening, and we're kind of going to wrap it up. So, development needs and or business needs and the development process. So, for what we've got to support a lot of things. We got to support marketing sites, B2C sites, e-commerce sites, B2B sites where our sales channels. We got to support iOS. We just released an app last fall. Android, and not Windows phones yet. I don't know if we will, but we thought I'd throw them up there anyways. So with that, we've got a lot of similar content. We've got terms and conditions, FAQs, contact information. We've got to support that across all of these platforms. So let's just take a look at a little bit of our development process. So the business comes in and says, I need to update some T's and C's. The manager says, you bet. We'll put it on the backlog. So how long is that going to take? So we get one developer involved. I'll go ahead and take the update. It's done. It's ready for a code review. Developer 2 comes in. Code looks good. Tester comes in. After it's in UAT, tests it out. And the business says, yep, the changes look good. Let's go to production. Another developer says, all right, let's get this thing out to production. Sysadmin deploys it to production. Business says, looks good in production. Auditor comes in and says, you guys did all of the steps that you say you're going to do. So how many people did that take? It seems kind of silly. Got 7 people up there to do some simple content changes. Update some sentences here, some paragraphs there, maybe an image. We get 7 people involved in that. And the reality is there's probably more people that have to get involved in that than just that. You probably have multiple business people involved. Maybe you've got a developer leads and more gates. So can anyone kind of relate to that SDLC and all of the gates that you've got to go through to get something out the door? All right? It takes a long time and a lot of change of hands. So how long did that take? Well, the manager put it on the backlog, and it probably sat there for, a few weeks. We run 3-week sprints, so at a minimum, it's going to sit there 3 weeks, and that's if it's at the top of the stack to work. So to do a simple change, it could take weeks or months to do something simple. So can we do better than that? You bet. That's why we're here today. So what I'm going to do right now is we're going to take a look at myprepaidbalance.com, show just some really basic, simple stuff that we're doing. And And then I was going to show you what we're doing in our app, but I wasn't able to get my phone mirrored on my, my computer here, so we'll just take a look at what we got going on in My Prepaid Balance. So this is myprepaidbalance.com. This is the customer-facing site for if you've got a prepaid card. We sell gift cards, reloadable cards, travel cards, youth cards. You can buy them at certain retail banks. Our B2C channel sells those, and we provide the software on their behalf. So this is where you would get if you received a card. Has anyone ever been to this site or got one of our gift cards? You got one? All right. Have you seen this? We redid the site last fall, I think, is when we launched it.
Yeah, I read it.
All right. Cool. Did it work? All right. Good. So what do we do? What do we do here that is CMS? So one challenge when we think about CMS and content and the applications is if you need content, do you have to build it on a CMS? Because if you start with WordPress or Joomla or name your favorite CMS, just to build the modules, the components, and integrate with your backend systems, it's not an easy feat. So we'll talk about how we deal with that. So, whoops. So what we've got here is just simple FAQs. Using your card. Can I use my card to pay at the gas pump? So that's coming from the CMS. But this site is not built on a CMS. So what we do control through the CMS is the FAQs, and we've got FAQs based on different card types. Those are the gift ones. Here come the travel ones. A lot of them are very similar. Using a Visa or MasterCard prepaid card is very similar, and there's a few things that vary between product type to product type. For example, if you've got a travel card, you can load with direct deposit. Gift cards, you can't reload them. So we've got different FAQs there. So we've got to find a way to control content across multiple platforms and have them specific to each product type. So FAQs is one thing that we do. And then we also control our terms and conditions out there, our privacy policy, terms of use, the stuff that changes and takes 3 to 4 weeks to get out the door for something that has probably been wrong for 2 years, but someone from legal happened to stumble across it, and now it's a fire drill. And then the last thing that we do with the CMS is we control our branding. So I use a query string param here. We just put that in for testing. But the way that this works is this is Spring Hill State Bank. I have no idea where that's at in the United States. But the way it works is in the backend CMS, we just have all these partners, and partners can upload logos, and they can choose their theme color. And then when you buy a card or are given a card from one of these, you log in, and we know something about you. We know where you bought that card. Then we'll serve up some of that content from the CMS. So the last thing I was going to show you is we do have a mobile app, My Prepaid, and it basically does the same thing. But again, it's querying from CMS. So not the typical CMS, because this site is built on MVC, Angular, talks to a self-hosted web API, and then talks back to some SOAP services, many SOAP services on the back end, so it's pretty complex. So the system architecture, the way this works, we've got all these websites. We've got the website, we've got the mobile apps. And when I say websites, we've got all of those terms and conditions are printed right there at the bank when you buy them. And that's our B2C, our B2B channel. We talked about customer service. This particular site doesn't have a back-end customer service that we host, but they need that same information. We're managing it other ways. So we've got the websites, the iOS, we've got all these clients over here on the right-hand side. Then we've got the CMS on the back end. And right in the middle, we've got this API. So a request comes in, it says, hey, I need the branding information, or I need some content based on this data, based on who you are, what you're asking for. Then the API queries the CMS, gets that content back, then the API manipulates that response on the way back out to the client. So the client is simply focused on presentation. The one cool thing about this is the API right there in the middle. We know a lot about you and what you do. We could probably figure out that every Friday you go to Starbucks if we want to, and we could tailor content based on your patterns or things that you've done. One big thing in prepaid is signing up for direct deposit. So things that we could do is when we call this API, we could make, look in the database, make API calls. Has this person signed up for direct deposit? No. Well, let's go to query the CMS and say, give me the campaign or the banner or the content, whatever it is for those people, and then send that back out the door. If they have, get a different campaign, get them something else. So there's some things that we can do. So right now, we've just basically stuck with the basics, terms, conditions, FAQs, but there's a lot of possibilities out there. So hybrid versus traditional, what's the difference? As I'm describing the way that we're using a CMS, is it what you typically think about when you hear CMS? Probably not. You probably think about WordPress, Joomla, Drupal. Those are all PHP. And this is the .NET users group, right? So we use the Orchard CMS, which is open source on MVC, very abstract, very flexible. But that's kind of the hybrid approach we talk. We're exposing data over APIs and consuming it versus the traditional where you've got the ability to create new pages on the fly, new site, navigation, a lot of JavaScript, just plug and play components. That's a little bit different. So what's right for you? Do you need to spin up those new pages on the fly, new landing pages, or do you just need content out of there? We just needed the content. So with the CMS, what comes out of the box is we've got user management. Right out of the box, it comes with forms authentication. We use Active Directory. And with the user management, we've got really granular controls. And for example, we can create roles that can only manage the partners, or only do terms and conditions, or only FAQs, whatever we want to. So very cool there. We've got custom content types. So as I was describing that, the FAQs is actually a content type. There's a question and an answer, and then business lines, product types, things like that, that gives us those extra attributes to get us the data that we want. And then you get Crud Operations. You get to view all the content. You get to create it. You get to delete it, edit it, publish it with no effort at all. Exposing some things in some APIs. Multi-tenancy. Does anybody know what multi-tenancy is in CMS? So multi-tenancy is really cool. That's where it really comes in to help across the enterprise. Because if you don't have the multi-tenancy is basically you host one CMS, you create multiple tenants, and they all are their self-contained tenant. They've got their own users, their own roles, their own content, all of their own data structures, their own modules. But I don't know about the rest of you guys, but sometimes the hardest part about developing is standing up dev, UAT, production, deploying it out. So if I can just do that once and then just create new tenants, that's way better. Especially when the business says, hey, you guys are using CMS for that? I'd like to use it on this product. Okay, well, we got to stand it all up again. That'll be a few months. Or, new tenant, and there you go, you're ready to go. And there's a lot more cool stuff out of the box. So I briefly showed you what we're using in production. We're going to take a look at a sample project, write some code, spin up some stuff, and show you how easy it is to do this. So first thing, I went out to Orchard, which they were on CodePlexer on GitHub now, but you can go to orchardproject.net and get everything you need to about Orchard. A lot of good information out there. So I just downloaded Orchard 1.9.2. That's the current version. I think 1.9.3 is in beta, just released. 1.10 is in beta as well for sometime this spring. So I just downloaded that, unzipped it, and opened up Orchard Solution. I opened it up because there's a lot of projects here, 82 projects in the solution. So I'm going to fire this thing up. So all I've done is unzipped it, hit F5. So we get to the Get Started screen. What's inside the name of your site? Users group. User, admin user, and I'll just give it the old password. And then how would you like to store the data? I'm just going to do a SQL compact. If you normally you would just use SQL Server, we use SQL Server and just point somewhere, but we're just using the built-in, and then we're just going to say finish. Let's fire this up here. It's cooking the Orchard recipe. Recipes are basically ways you can kind of pre-configure the modules. Say, here's the CMS, I want all these modules pre-installed, or you can just get the blank canvas and then install whatever you want to. There we go. So we've got the users group. The default theme is pretty lame, but there's some pretty decent themes out there. I think there's a couple Bootstrap themes, and you can use the Bootstrap swatches. There's some other ones, but we don't really care about that. We care about the admin. So we've got an admin, and actually, I fast forwarded a little bit. So this is just how you spin up a CMS. I'm going to take a look. I've got a couple examples that I've got built. So here is a CMS that I've got hosted, and I'm using the Bootstrap theme here, so it looks a little bit nicer. And I've got some content set up for that, and I've got a web app that's published out there that's consuming that. So we talked about terms and conditions, FAQs, not very exciting, but there's a need for it. Sometimes you can get away with, oh, well, we only update the terms and conditions a few times a year. We'll just grind through it when it happens. But this is a little bit more exciting. So this is a sample project with just a simple Bootstrap Carousel, adding some things through here. So this is actually all coming from CMS. So we'll come into the CMS, and let's just say I want to change this particular carousel item. I'm going to log in here. I think I've had this page up a while. I'm not sure if I'm still, okay, I am still logged in. So I'm just going to the content. I'm going to find that skyscraper feature item. And then this is where we're talking about custom content types. So this has got a title, it's got a feature group, it's got an image, it's got a headline, subheadline, button text. So I'm just going to change the subheadline, say the .NET users group is awesome. Publish that out, refresh the page. There we go, the .NET user group is awesome. So how long did that take? Just a few seconds versus 7 plus people over weeks of time. So that's all right, but so we edited something that's existing. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new feature item, and I'm not sure what I'm going to call it. Let's see what I got. Some images out here, just some stock photos. I'll just select this one. I think this one's called Nightlife, so I'll just call it Nightlife. And then I'll publish that. Come back over here, refresh. And now we've got 4 items in the carousel. So, and I'd only put a title in, and it didn't display the button or the subheadline. And I can easily come out here and say, let's give it sign up today. And we'll go to, we'll just tell it to go to Google. Sure, they've got something exciting to sign up for at Google. So now we're on slide 4, we've got a sign up button, and then we're going to open that in Google. So just a very simple way, but again, that's not, I didn't send all of the data down that the HTML, the JavaScript, the images, I just passed the data. And then the client chose how to present it. Another example in the same project is a basic list of employees. We've got images, we've got names, job titles. Same deal, I've got another content type called employee, and an employee as a title, an avatar. So go ahead and get Matt on here. And we can just grab his avatar, and let's see, he's got a collared shirt on, and not quite a tie. And then we'll just publish that out. And now we've got Matt there at the bottom. So pretty cool. So a good parallel to what we've got a marketing site, metapay.com. We've got a leadership group with our president and our vice president and all of this CFO and CEO, and they want to change out their bios, and same song and dance. But the difference here is, again, we're just sending the data down, and this is a custom content type. We're going to walk through how I created the employees and show you how easy it is. So we're going to swing back over to the CMS that we just started, unzipped it, opened up solution, hit F5, went through the start page, and now we're here, brand new. What do we need to make it happen? There's just a couple key pieces that make this work. We're going to come into the modules, and we're going to install, whoops. There's a gallery with a lot of modules. one thing about Orchard is tough is Orchard's been around for quite a while, and the gallery has got a lot of stuff that was good, that was supplementing what wasn't in Orchard. And then over time, those things started getting picked up in the Orchard framework. So some of the things that are like top downloaded aren't really things that you should be downloading. So the gallery is a little bit misleading, but there is some good stuff out there. So I'm going to install a module from my computer. I'm going to install two modules. One of them is called Orchard Odata. And the reason I'm installing this from my computer is the latest version of Orchard 1.9.2 is compatible with this Orchard Odata 1.9.01, I think. And there is a bug, and I reached out to the guy who published that module. He's got an active bug, and he says, here's the fix, and he says he's working on it, but he's been working on it for quite a while. I guess that's one thing that you get for open source. You know, there are bugs out there. But so I packaged up that module with the bug fix so I could use it. Hopefully I'll get that updated in the gallery. I'm going to do one more module. This is one that I wrote. And this is, I don't have it in the gallery, but I plan to get it in the gallery sometime. And if you like what you see, I can certainly, I'll get this stuff posted so you can use it. And this is a media API module. So we installed the module, now we're enabling the features. So after doing two things, we get one really cool feature. We're going to go to /odata/pages. Now we can just make web requests to the CMS and we're streaming, all that stuff's coming back out as JSON. So that's for the pages. So now we're going to come in and we're going to start creating a custom content definition. So we've got pages, those are things going to be like your terms and conditions, terms and conditions, terms of use, whatever you want to do. So we're going to create a new content type. We're going to call it employee. And we're going to give it a title. These are the parts that are available to any Orchard module. And now we're going to start shaping this data however we want it. We're just going to add a field, and we're going to say a job title, and we're going to say that it is a text field. We're going to add another field, an avatar, and it is a media library picker field. Let's see, we've got a department, and we're going to make that one an enumeration field, and a bio, and that will be a text field. So now, come back here, and now instead of pages, we're going to say employees. There's no content in there, so let's get some content in there. So now I see in the navigation I've got an employee. I can create a new employee. Actually, before I do that, so right now I did not change any of the input types. I go back into the employee, and I'm going to edit this, and I'm going to change the department. First, we can just put in our options here, and we'll just leave the first one blank. Say the first one's IT, then marketing, then accounting, whatever. And then in here you can give the little help text, select the department you work in. And then the bio will make that a HTML field, And we can check required or not required. Put some help text in there. The job title, we'll give this the wide display option. Department, bio, okay. So now we just changed the way that's going to be presented a little bit. So we've got a title. I'll just put myself in there. Nope, I have not added these images here, so I'm going to come into the media. Going to create a folder, call employees, and then I'm going to import those avatars. All right, let's try that again. All right, add an avatar, find our folders. Give myself this guy. Whoops, don't want to delete it. I'm going to select it. I'm a software engineer. Nate likes long nights of programming on the beach. His favorite are, let's get unordered list here, Mexico, Florida, Carib, I don't know how to spell that off the top of my head. Yeah, we're spell check, right? There's probably a spell checker in here somewhere. So we'll just say Nebraska. Can spell that. And I'm in the IT department. So I'll publish that. Now I'm going to come back here and refresh. Now I got all that data exposed through APIs. We'll go ahead and add one more person real quick. So we got a couple people in there. Bob Jones. And looks like that guy. He's a marketing manager. Bob likes Google and marketing. So now we've doubled our payload here, and now we're ready to roll. So it just in the matter of 5 or 10 minutes, we've got a CMS fired up. We added some modules to expose some things over some APIs, and created custom content types, just shape them however we needed to. Pretty cool. So, now what are we going to do? We need to use it somehow, right? So I've got a sample project. And the cool thing about this is when you think about CMS, and sometimes you may have been faced with decisions, okay, we need content. We got to build everything on top of the CMS. Or we've got this existing site that swaps out a banner like once a quarter. Well, with this, we've got the capabilities to say, let me query the CMS for that banner. And I'm going to plug it in to my existing site without a whole lot of effort. And we're going to show you how easy it is. So I've got another project here, and I just did file, new web app, just an MVC web app. I created just a couple things here. I created, and we'll just start at the top here. I created an employees view model, which has a list of employees. And then an employee object, employee model. It's got a name, job title, avatar, bio, avatar, and department. And the avatar, can you guys see that all right? Or you want me to zoom in a little bit on my code? You guys all right? Okay. And then the avatar, the data type is actual media, and it's a MIME type, a string, and a byte array. So I've got my models set up, and because we're exposing this over, you could do this a couple different ways. You could just make a basic web request and get your JSON and create all of your objects however you want to. But we're exposing it over Odata. So we're going to use some tools to help us out. And this is using Odata version 4. Has anyone used Odata before? Version 4 or 3? 4? Okay. Kind of the difference from, I'm not a big Odata ninja, but from what I can tell, Odata 3 was basically exposing things over like WCF, and it creates, if in order to use it, you would add new service reference, just like you were doing a SOAP service, and create all the proxy objects. Version 4 is looks like it's more REST-based and JSON-based. So the Odata team at Microsoft created a tool to help you. Whoops, I've got it installed already. Odata client. So there is you can go into its extensions and updates and download the Odata v4 client code generator. So this is going to help you out. In WCF, you get a service reference, proxy objects, it all does it for you. This will do it for you too, using REST and JSON. So once I've got that installed, I've got a data folder here, and I'm going to add new item. And let's see here, I believe we've got an Odata client, and we'll just call it CMS data. It's going to create a couple files for us, and I think it gives you an error because it tries to compile and it's not quite ready. We're going to come out here and grab this URL where our Odata is, and we're going to put it here. I'm going to paste it in there, and then we're just going to hit save. And you can change things in here. Here you can say C# or VB. You can do additional namespaces if you'd like. And now we've got some proxy objects instead of having to create everything. And the cool thing about that is the Orchard data types are very complex. They're very big, not something that you would naturally do, but it's got to be super dynamic because you can create so many things right on the fly. So not what you wouldn't want to create models for everything. So now that we've got that, to save time from me typing and you watching me type, I wrote some code. We'll just walk through it real quickly here. So I've got a web config with the URL. Let me double check I've got pointing in the right spot. All right, local host. I got Fiddler running in the background. We're going to take a look at what's happening in Fiddler. So I've got localhost.fiddler. Let me make sure that's the right one. 303.21. Yep. All right. Let's create a new URI. And then right here is the thing that all the magic's in, like these lines of code right here. Data, that was our folder that we put our class in. So if we go into the definition of this, we can actually see all that code that was generated by that tool. And this has got all of the classes that are reflected here. So we've got this Odata object, and then I've got a logic here. Got a parameter coming in that says if the department is not null, then filter by where the department is what comes in, or we can say odata.employees.toList. Right there, that's the magic. It's making that API call for you. One line of code, pretty powerful. 3 lines code. And then we got a for each loop here simply just mapping what came out of that object into our local web models. And then we've got one little helper here. I'll talk about that in just a minute. So, and then I did create a view. We'll just fire it up and see if it works. Clear out Fiddler. All right, basic MVC app, file new. And I added employees. All right, there we go. We've got myself up there, and we've got Bob Jones up there, and we've got HTML that's getting spit out there and rendered on the screen. And we've got all of our data points. So that was pretty quick, wasn't it? Not a lot of code. So how long would that take if someone said, hey, I need a website that has a list of employees and I want to be able to manage it whenever I want to? It'd be a small project. Well, I guess it depends on how many layers you want to put in there, and are you doing level 1 or level 3 architecture? But so pretty cool. So let's just check out what happened in Fiddler in the background. I made 2 calls. So we can see the get on the employees. That's just a page. Then we can see us calling the CMS. And you can see that all we did was call localhost orchard odata/employees. And we have this JSON coming back. Pretty cool. And now I've just got a query string param. There's way better ways to get input, but that's the simplest way. So I said department equals IT. So now I only get me. So I'm filtering there. That was that if statement that said if department is null or empty. So let's take a look at what happened there. Actually, let's go back into the code and just take a look at that link statement one more time. So odata.employees.where lambda expression x department.value equals the input.toList. Pretty simple link expression there. So what actually happened was this. So maybe you'll see it here a little better. So just that simple lambda expression put on using the Odata syntax, $filter equals department/value IT. I don't know Odata, but I know how to do lambda expressions. All that's doing, it's doing all that for you. So I can just hit that, pull it up in the browser, and I've got just that data. Very cool. So the other piece that's happening here is how are we getting that image out of the CMS? It's file-based. Actually uploaded that image. It's on the file system. How do we get it out? So the first module that we've really been talking about is the Odata module, exposing your data over APIs, accessing it through Odata. The other piece was the module that I wrote was for the media API. So what that does is you can query into the CMS, say, I need this media. It's got a URL of this. And send me back the byte array and the MIME type. So let's take just a look here. Let me see if I can find it. Right here is the URL for that image that I uploaded. So that's the path, that's the location on the file system in the CMS. So the other API call that's happening is right here. Let's open that up in Chrome so we can see the JSON. So pointing to the same CMS, but instead of /odata, it's /API/module name, and then the action on the module. Query string param URL, that path on the file system. Hit enter. Now that's coming back as a byte array and a MIME type. So we can do PNGs, JPEGs, GIFs, PDFs, docs, whatever you want. I think in the module I limited I made it configurable so you could say I want, a common delimited list of these extensions. You don't want to probably EXEs going back and forth, but there's a few security things in there. So that particular module, it's basically PNGs, JPEGs, GIFs, DocX, Excel, PDFs, things like that. Just the normal things the business would need. So flip back to the code real quick. Take a look at that one method. So we queried the CMS, made our OData call, just a couple lines of code, looping over this stuff. And then we get to the employee avatar first media URL. So if we've got an avatar, then we're going to, I just wrote a little helper function that's going to make another web request to that specific URL we just pulled up in the browser. Then we're going to just deserialize that into JSON into that media object that I mentioned before was just a byte array and a MIME type, and then send that guy back. And that's it. So getting the data through OData, using the data then to call back into the API to get this, the data back through the MIME type and the byte array. So what else can we do? Just real quickly, let's just go out and create this one. We'll just create a new content definition. We won't finish this one out, but just kind of for the proof of concept. Let's just create an FAQ content type. And it'll have a title. And then we'll just give it a question. And an answer. So now back to, and we'll just create one. So now I've got FAQ. Oh, I forgot to. How high is up? Really high. So now back to that OData, just your host / OData. Now instead of employees, we'll say FAQs. Now we've got that over JSON. So what's that look like when we come over here into our client app? So we're just going to our client app. We're just going to open up that the template file, and we're going to say we'll save that. And it's going to generate some code. Now back in our controller, if we wanted to, we could say var FAQs equals odata dot FAQs dot toList. That's going to query that. So then I would map that data back. Pretty flexible and pretty cool. Now the last piece here is the multi-tenancy. So we talked about the infrastructure of, I got to set up in dev and UAT and firewalls and permissions, go through that. And I've done that so many times, but it always run into something. It's never smooth for whatever reason. So we're going to come back out to our CMS, and we're going to go into our modules. And we're going to search for multi-tenancy. We're going to enable that. Now we've got a new navigation item over here on the left for tenants. And I'm going to add a tenant. I'm going to call it the Agile Users Group. And then we're going to say allow the tenant to set it up, select all the themes. So this is where you can say, well, the default tenant has all these themes. I want those, or no, I don't want those. So we're just going to select everything. Save. Oh. And we'll just call it Agile. It doesn't like the spaces. I think it uses it for the URL. All right, so now we've got another tenant. And we're going to say setup. Oh, I need to give it a URL. URL prefix gets tacked onto the local host. So I think there's where I'm just kind of hosting it once, and then all the tenants are going to be /agile /tenant1 2 3. That's where you could actually put in a real domain. So you could have metapay.com, my prepaid balance, whatever. They're all pointing in the same spot. But since I'm hosting it here, Agile, so same screen. And then I can use SQL Compact, or if you're using SQL Server, which you probably would be if you're using it in production, that's what we're using, you can prefix the tables based on your tenant, because you're going to get your own set of tables. So you could either say, I'm going to point this to a different database, or I can say I have the same database, just different prefix of the tables. But we'll just create it with SQL Compact. Finish the setup. We've seen this. I think my machine needs a little bit more horsepower here. Doesn't need to get a solid state drive. So now we've got Agile Users Group, and it's a Orchard Local /Agile. And then I've got my own dashboard. And then I can do, let's see, I can't remember if those modules are enabled by default. Need to enable the Odata module. And the Media API module right here. And now, Odata /pages, pages, format equals JSON. Now we're exposing these pages, and then the last thing here is we can come in here and we can create an employee. Maybe this tenant, the employee data is shaped a little bit different. Maybe it's more of an HR site where you've got date start and salary and whatever. Its own tenant, it's got its own tables, its own instance. You can shape it however you want to. You can create whatever you want. So from an enterprise perspective, we've got the ability to host it once, get over that deployment hurdle, add new tenants very quickly, and now that you get that in production, you can add new tenants. For example, we've got a multiple prepaid division. We've got a credit division. Like, they all have the same things. Every website's got FAQs, terms and conditions, privacy policy, and you probably need to control a few images. So what we've got started here at our work is an opportunity to really shape and drive the speed of those things. And the last thing that we've got the ability to do is I've got this is the original site that we kind of talked through that's got the big carousel. I've got 2 accounts here. And the logic here is very rudimentary. There's going to be an if statement in there that says, if domain is at metabank.com, do this, else do that. So hopefully your business logic and your services are a little more complex than that. But so here I go to my account summary, and I see this banner that says download something. And this is downloading a PDF, opening that up. So we've got here, that kind of demonstrates the different MIME types. So I'm going to log off, log in, Nate Button at Gmail. Go to the account summary. We've got a different image here, and I think this is going to pop up some web page. And this was a campaign, is what I called it, and a campaign. The campaign's got an image, a banner, a click-through URL, click-through in a new window. Maybe an example of that was like CNN Money. You want that to go to a new window. Maybe you're clicking through to a page in your site. You don't want it to. So you shape that data however you need it to satisfy what you need. And then this example, I've actually got HTML. So maybe I want to run a campaign and I want to put a snippet of SurveyMonkey code. Say, hey, if this person's never taken a survey before, or if they've done this thing that we've wanted them, give them a survey. So kind of back to that slide where you got that API in the middle, where we know who you are, we know what you do, we know what you haven't done, we know what we want you to do. We can start serving up content based on your needs instead of getting a blanket marketing. So we can really target market. So I'm going to wrap it up here. So just to wrap it up here, what do we do? We installed Orchard 1.9.2. So the Orchard Odata Module. We installed the Media API module that I wrote. Created custom content types. Created a client app. And really wrote about 3 lines of code to make it happen. Everything else was just yak shaving, if you will. And then we set it up on a multi-tenant. So pretty easy stuff to solve what seems like a simple problem, but no one ever wants to solve that problem, because in order to get CMS, you have to do 1 of 2 things. Build your business apps on top of a CMS, and you have to learn that particular CMS's modules, plugins, whatever they call them, or you have to write all that stuff yourself. And the time and effort to build an internal admin or whatever it is, or the screens to do your basic CRUD operations, just isn't worth it for the 2 or 3 times that terms and conditions or the FAQ change. You can just take that on. But with the ability to have that API in the middle and really target market or serve up the right content for your users, really opens up some doors for the product and marketing teams. Really simple stuff. Any questions?
Hey, one of the biggest things that I've run into in the past when I've used the CMS is the migration of content from one environment to another. What kind of things do you do with, is that something you deal with in your environment?
So we need to.
Okay.
So I've actually got a meeting scheduled with a group here that specialize in build and deployments. We're using TeamCity for automated builds. We're using Octopus for our deployments. But yeah, you're right. Because what happens is in the CMS, let's just take a look at what's happening. Show all files. So here's the settings.txt file. And this has got our modules and data connection string. There's where you'd see your connection string to your server. And then, let's see, then it's putting all of that media. There's all of our images that we upload right in the file system. So you do have a challenge there because you're doing all that stuff in production. The files are up there. The data's up there. We haven't had the need to do it yet, but we will. And I think probably the best way to handle that is to back up and restore down from production to UAT to dev. And then at some period of time, you kind of have to freeze that because you're going to have stuff going back out the other direction. And then as far as like the physical files, like the images and PDFs, I think you just probably figure out a way to copy those down, and you wouldn't commit them to source control. From a deployment perspective, normally what we do is the deployment scripts, the first thing it does stops the app pool, does some other checks, wipes directory clean, then redeploys everything. So we probably have to write some custom scripts to say wipe the directory clean except for the app data folder.
Right.
That's probably what we'd have to do.
Basically still a challenge.
It is, yep. I don't think there's a silver bullet for that, but I don't know how frequently you need that fresh data. It probably depends.
Yeah.
When you add a new tenant to this, they don't inherit any of the qualities that you've already built. It's just, you have to basically build up each tenant.
Yep, you have to build each tenant. You'd have to, if you wrote some pages and you wanted them over here, you'd have to probably rewrite them. They've got their own database, all their own tables. They've got you can see in the,
But like you said, they might all have a list of employees, but they'd be different.
right. They've got their own directories here. You can see that here in the media, there's a folder location for the Agile, which was one tenant. The other one was the default one. So they're all right into their own respective folders. So a very clean separation.
Is there a mechanism, like you built that employee data type, is there a mechanism to package that into a plugin that you could then just install in the next environment as you went off?
There probably is. Yeah, there's some export functionality. I haven't really had to get into that, but yeah, I would be willing to bet that there's some of that.
What about version control?
As far as data or,
As far as the data, like if I change my terms and conditions?
oh, like, okay, so yeah, so with great power comes great responsibility, right? So you give a business user, hey, I'm going to change the terms and conditions, and it's HTML, and they completely screw it up. I haven't had to deal with that doesn't look like there's anything on the box. It's like, go back to the previous version of this content item. I'd say that's one piece that I'd really like to see, because users will screw it up. Probably if,
And knowing which user screwed it up.
yeah. There are, there is an audit trail module. It's in, what I showed on my prepaid balance earlier, we're on version 1.8, and the latest is, so we're on 1.8 using OData version 3, some more of the WCF related. I'm showing you here the 1.9, and it has the audit trail, and that's, we're in the banking industry, so like everything has to be documented, audited. So that's one thing they weren't very happy about is, hey, there's no audit trail. I'm like, who really needs the audit trail? No one's ever going to ask. We've had this EMS for metabank.com for like 2 years and no one's ever asked. You know, I guess.
The other side that kind of works along with that is it's so easy to fix it that you can
Yes.
spend your time fixing it instead of figuring out who to blame. It's not a 3-week process to fix
Yep.
it anymore.
Another thing that we've had to deal with, we didn't do it on our most recent one because it seemed like it was really just a hurdle to slow things down. But in the banking and the audit, there's usually this concept of dual control. I can't promote my own changes and things like that. It turns out on metabank.com, that was the traditional one where it's, you know, it's you create new pages on the fly, site navigation, and there's like 1, maybe 2 people using it. And they, you know, because we're a bank, we think we need all the controls and the gates. We use the Orchard workflow, where you could, on a content change, you save it, it starts a workflow, and then certain users have the ability to go into that content, and because they have a certain right, they can approve it, and then the act of approving actually publish it. So there's a little bit of dual control. The one gap on that is you can approve your own changes. That's one thing, but they've been using it for 2 years, and it's the same person. There's only one person really using it, so what's the point? But I'm sure there are cases where you've got, you know, more people in there. The more people, the more control you need around it.
Like out of the box, anytime you deal with the user interface, ADA compliance is fairly important. How is this great? We're just out of the box, we have these different interfaces.
For the Orchard, like the admin?
Yeah.
You know, I have never ran it through a test. You know, color contrast looks all right. Things seem to tab through appropriately. I never ran it through.
So Dave, what part of this do you guys give to your content managers and the people who are going to update that? Is it this admin piece?
Yeah, so the way it works is they'll go in and they'll log in, and then what they'll see is, let's see. So they will probably only see this top box and the media, and that's about it. And you can come into users, and I could create, I can just take a look at the roles here. I could create a new role. I'll just take, this is the roles that come out of the box. They may make sense, they may not make sense to how your organization is structured, but we can grant very specific permissions. So if we only wanted someone to manage the employees, we've got a whole section here for each content type. So I can say, you are in charge of the employee database or whatever. That's the only thing that you can do. Or maybe, you know, you work with him and we don't trust you so much, so you can't change the stuff that he did. So there's other controls that say you can edit employees, or you can edit employees for others. So this is saying you can only edit stuff that you did, or I can edit the stuff that anyone did. And then here we've got the FAQs. And you see here that this particular, there's two columns. There's an allow and an effective. And there's a hierarchy that's involved here. And I think, yes, these are the contents. So because FAQs and employees are a content type, they are inherently this role is inherently getting the rights to do all that stuff with those other content types, because I'm saying I can edit content for others, and content is the parent of the custom ones we built.
The database connection will include cloud.
Yeah,
Azure.
this right here is running in Azure. And I don't even know, I didn't deploy that. I went out to the Azure portal and I said, new web app, Orchard CMS, and it just worked. But if you look in the config, it's probably got some things in there pointing to their data centers and doing things for load balancing. Actually, it'd be interesting to see what things they've got in there that make all that happen. But there are also, in the modules, there are some specific modules for Azure. Azure Media Service, Media Storage. So they've got some hooks into Azure. Not sure what they do or how to deal with that, but I do know that you can do new CMS in Azure and it works, which is also pretty cool.
When it says Orchard Cooking, it's actually building up the tables and stuff. in
Yep.
the database stuff.
Exactly.
That's cool.
Any other questions?
So for the Android and iOS stuff, you just take care that your websites are applicable on those things, or you have to do some special things to take, to use this with your Android and iOS implementations?
So back to this slide here. The way we've got this set up is, so our application was very simple. We went from the website directly to the CMS and just did the logic right there in the web app. So what we've got there in the middle is we've actually got a self-hosted web API that's got some RESTful endpoints that make sense, that are shaped however they need it. Like, for example, the FAQs, it's like, /API/FAQs, and then the request object has got like a business line and a product type, so those are the things you need as an anonymous user. I wasn't logged in, I was pulling those things up. Or I'm logged in, I know who you are, and I know what card it is, so another parameter is a card ID. So then we take that information in that API, then that middle API then calls out to multiple databases or SOAP services, figures out the attributes. Then when we go into the CMS, it says, give me the FAQs for this business line, for this processor, for this product type, and collapses that all down and sends it back. And then in the API, we do a little bit of manipulating for ordering, and a few different business logic items there. One example is the terms and conditions. We've got basic terms and conditions, but based on your card in the processor, we've got different customer service phone numbers for them. So that data is also in the CMS. Say for this business line, for this product, for this processor, give me the contact information, and in that middle API layer, we take them and we smash them together and then send them out the door. So all that logic is contained there in that API.
I think what's asking though is if you have a mobile web app, or whether you're Android and iOS are applications that communicate with your API.
Yes. So the iOS, Android apps, they just talk that web API in the middle, so they don't even have to worry about getting to that CMS, and they're just using the objects that are shaped for them, or however it's.
Developed applications for those
Yes.
devices.
Yep. Answer your question? Kind of.
So how'd you determine to settle on Orchard? Was there anything else that you guys tried?
Yeah, so probably, it's probably been about 3 years ago. We did some R&D on different CMSs. The first criteria was that it was on the Microsoft tech stack, because that's what we know. We know MVC, we know Web API, we know C#. So if we need to build something, we can. The top ones out there are pretty much all PHP. So right there, that cut your number of CMSs, to a pretty small subset. And it came down to two CMSs: Orchard, which was free, or EpiServer, which was not. EpiServer was very expensive, but it had a lot of really cool features. But when you weigh the, who's going to write the check and the ROI on it, it wasn't going to pan out. So that's kind of how we landed on that. And actually, after we did that, I happened to read a post about this, and I was like, this light started coming on, because we've had these content problems for a long time. So it's a pretty good solution for us.
Most of the features sounds like already available in Microsoft SharePoint. Is it not a big organization to use SharePoint, where we need CMS, because CMS pretty much has features like web files and features, customizations and all that, which is already available in Microsoft SharePoint, which can be pretty much done by one single person, just like how we explained it before.
Yeah.
You don't need 7 people.
Right. So SharePoint is very powerful, but I believe it also requires a pretty specialized skill set to be able to manage it and build in it. And we didn't really have that. And I don't know, we just didn't have that skill set. Do you do a lot of SharePoint? So yeah, I think that can SharePoint expose the data through APIs like that?
Yes. And the SharePoint provides inbuilt web services which external applications can use.
Yeah, SharePoint's pretty powerful. We didn't have the expertise in it. It's also expensive. Yeah, so in the Orchard is free and SharePoint is not. We do have some pretty big Microsoft licenses, and we do use SharePoint, but maybe my opinion on SharePoint is skewed based on how we've misused it. Our implementation went from everything was shared in these shared folders on some network drive, and it was a mess. And then we got SharePoint, and the mess just moved to the web. So it probably tainted my views of how I view SharePoint. But yes, SharePoint is very powerful.
In your install with the Orchard, it's pretty easy. You basically unzip the folder and
Hit F5.
I don't think SharePoint can quite do that.
And do you guys plan on migrating to the next version of that on yours? Is that going to be painful?
Yeah, we will be migrating, I think on our iteration roadmap, sometime in June or July. It will. So their question about that Matt had about the environments. So definitely have to solve that problem. But what we did was what we needed to do to get off the ground. We unzipped it. We committed it in source control. But probably the right way to do it, and this is where I'm going to meet with the guys that are really good at building deployment, is to actually pull down the repo from GitHub and then branch off it. And I think they call it the source code enlistment model, so that whenever you get updates, you branch off their tags and then you just merge them down. and deploy your code out. And it should just work. Probably ought to test it, but yes, we do plan on upgrading. I think I've kind of been watching Orchard for probably about 4 years now. I think at one point, from before 1.7, there's just horror stories of upgrading. So probably anything that was done in before that, was still in that version. And I think they made it better in 1.7. I'm yet to do an upgrade, which kind of avoided that. But hopefully the source code enlistment piece pans out really well. And then we've got automated builds and deployments based on the GitHub branching and merging.
Is that still going to support the 3.0 data, or are you going to have to migrate also your APIs to 4.0?
We will have to do some retesting there. It should just work, but we will have to, instead of using the add service reference, we won't be able to update service reference. We'll have to use that client code generator to get those objects. I think the objects are shaped the same, so we'll see. But it'll be worth it. And then I think, so I talked about 1.10 is in beta right now, slated for this spring. They are working on Orchard 2 is what they're calling it. And that's on ASP.NET 5. And they're building it from the ground up. It's because ASP.NET 5 is just so different. So there is definitely a commitment. There's a steering committee. The community votes on it. Some pretty reputable people on that steering committee. They hold weekly podcasts or webcasts where you can join in on Skype and listen. And I've never done that, but they post their minutes. They give demos. So it's, I think maybe about four or 5 years ago, it had kind of halted. So something happened 3 or 4 years ago that really made them pick it up. I think there's probably some things with Microsoft and Umbraco about the same time. I'm not sure why this one kept moving and Umbraco seemed to kind of be stagnant. Any other questions? Okay. You bet. Oh, I'll put my contact info up here. If anybody wants to, if anyone's got any questions, want some sample code, what do you guys do for getting any code out or anything like that?
If you have something, we can, we'll just post it online somewhere.
Okay.
And I'll send an email link to it.
Okay, I'll try and get the sample code up online, the module's up if you want to use it. Feel free to shoot me an email if you got questions. Hey, how'd you do that? I'd like some help or anything. Be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.